Now, as we have seen yesterday, Aristotle has pointed out and discussed it very categorically that tragedy is not an imitation of persons but of actions. And by the end of chapter 9, he introduces astonishment. Astonishment in Greek is called as Thomaston, Thaumaston, Thomaston. It covers a range of related ideas, the translation of this word: surprise, amazement, wonder. So Aristotle introduces astonishment, surprise, or wonder into the discussion. Now, astonishment is a good thing in tragic plot, but it is not necessary because it is not affecting the wholeness or unity of the play. So, here in the end of chapter number 9, Aristotle moves from minimum conditions for a well formed plot and begins to consider what makes such plot better than other. He has constructed the whole structure of well formed plot, and now he's chiseling it, trying to make it more clear and more constructive to understand. Now he refers at once to pity and fear and said that tragedy is an imitation not just of complete action but also of events that evoke pity and fear. In judging the quality of one tragic plot over or against another, it is the emotional impact to which Aristotle appeals more. Aristotle is pointing out towards emotional impact of the tragedy. For that, he identifies two things which make a sequence of events particularly effective. Now, these effects occur above all when things come about contrary to expectation, but because of one another. I'll repeat once again what Aristotle is referring. Aristotle is referring, he is identifying two things which makes the sequence of events particularly effective. He identifies two things. What he said, these effects occur above all when things come about contrary to expectations, but because of one another. Now, this phrase, contrary to expectation, because if you want to make it more effective, then you need to come about contrary to expectation. What the audience is expecting, you have to go beyond that expectation. And this contrary to expectation introduces the notion of astonishment in tragic plot. This contrary to expectation, it introduces the notion of astonishment because of one another, the sequences of one another that is coming after one another. It provides an anchor to the discussion of necessary or probable. Please understand this. Contrary to expectation is required. Why? To make this tragedy more effective. The sequence of events which are part of the tragedy, they have to be effective. The events have to evoke pity and fear amongst the audience. And Aristotle is trying to bring this with the help of the word called the sequences, where all the things come about, all the sequences when they come about and they surpass the contrary to the expectation. They are not following the same expectation here. They are simply trying to build a discussion, trying to build a further action into existence. This, contrary to expectation, it provides a perfect anchor to the discussion of what would be necessary or what would be probable connection that has either going to appear in the plot or that has gone before. Astonishment and connection. Please understand this thing. Why astonishment is required? For the particular effect. And what this astonishment used to do, the astonishment provides a perfect ground or stick up to the discussion of necessary or probable. Necessary or probable connection. That means astonishment and connection are both desirable if emotional impact of the plot has to be maximized. If we want to increase the effect, emotional effect of tragic plot, we require these two things: astonishment and connection. What is astonishment? It is contrary to the expectations. It is leading, it is creating ground, it is an anchor to provide a discussion of necessary or probable connection of what has gone before or what will appear afterwards. So astonishment and connection, these two things are, you can say, desirable, not necessary. Please understand, desirable. These two things are desirable if we are expecting a tragic effect from that particular play has to be maximized. Now, why I'm saying it is desirable? It is saying that it has to be, it helps to maximize. There is already the emotion of pity and fear, capacity of evoking the emotions of pity and fear amongst the audience. It is the thing already there. But if you want to maximize it, you require these two things to take place in a tragic plot, well-formed tragic plot: astonishment and connection. Now, please understand this. If connection is one of the things which increase emotional impact, then we can say why Aristotle's theory of poetic plots places so much emphasis on it to maximize the effect. But his slightly convoluted illustration of the importance of connection suggests that there is a degree of flexibility, flexibility in practice. Not all the poets or dramatists will use this connection. There's a flexibility in it. Now, how this flexibility you will find out? For example, a man called Bill. Once again, we'll take the example of Bill. A man called Bill is murdered. Okay. And later on, his statue is there. The statue of Bill is erected, and one day a man standing below the statue, and the statue topples over the man and kills him. And later on, we come to know that the man who is buried under the statue, who is killed because of the statue, is the murderer. Okay, this is the story. There is actually no connection of the two events, that the man standing behind below the statue and the statue falls over that man, killing the man. There is no connection. But if you want to connect the thing there, you can say that there is a fate, that Bill wants to take revenge of his own murder, and as soon as his statue found that the murderer is standing below, it falls over that man, and that man died. That means the statue, Bill has taken his revenge. You can connect it in that way. That means it depends on how the audience try to connect the things together, and that's why Aristotle said it is not desirable. It is desirable. It is not compulsion. It is not necessary. That's why Aristotle's theory of plots emphasized on the emotional impact of the tragic plot. And this tragic plot can get its impact through the use of connections. Good impact of this tragic plot may get from the idea of connection that Aristotle is trying to point out. Now, Aristotle's argument is that the illusion of connection, this illusion of connection increases our sense of astonishment. We are not forcing the poet to show these types of things deliberately into his well-formed tragic plot. But these illusions, like this, like the statue falling over the man who is the murderer of Bill, this illusion of this illusion of connection, that you try to connect it, that yes, this is what we can say. Now, this illusion of connection develops or increases the sense of astonishment amongst the audience. Now, if an illusion has the effect, then surely there must be an actual connection to create such things. And you will find out, my friends, Aristotle talks about this flexibility in plot which develops the sense of astonishment because of the illusion of connection. We find that Aristotle has given, or you will find out, an ample of evidences in the further chapters, especially in chapter 24 and 25. He talks about irrationalities in the plot with particular caution. But he does not absolutely rule out that there is no irregularities in the plot. Aristotle sets out his requirements, sets out his requirement for a well-formed plot. How what plots to be called as well-formed plots? Aristotle has set out certain rules and regulations for this. And when he sets out certain rules and regulations for a well-formed plot, where you will find out in principle, in principle, poetry ought to aim for this sort of requisition. But the application for creating a sort of well-formed tragic plot, the principle in which the poetry is built up, the aim of the poetry, what we discussed earlier also, what is the aim of the poetry, the principle of aim of the poetry, what is the principle, why poetry is built up? Poetry is built up simply because to create, to have, to evoke the emotions of pity and fear for the purification of soul, for the purgation, for achieving catharsis. This is what the poetry aims at. And in principle, poetry, because it's a definition of well-formed plot. What is a well-formed plot? Which reaches to an impact of, which create an effect of purgation, purification, with the help of evoking the emotions of pity and fear. Now, a well-formed plot as things which in principle poetry ought to aim for, but its application of this principle is by means no rigid. The application for reaching to this principle, he is not saying that this is the only way to achieve this. You can use your way to achieve this particular effect. Whether you choose X or whether you choose Y, it doesn't matter. But to achieve this particular principle, Aristotle is by means no rigid, or he is not giving any doctrine, and we shall see. He recognizes that departures from the norms, most of the time we find it, that he is departing from that norms which he has defined Maybe those norms are having certain advantages in certain circumstances. Those circumstances, those advantages that the plot can able to get to achieve its aim, to achieve its target. Maybe Aristotle has defined it, Aristotle has shown the way, but he is not insisting that this is the only way from which you can achieve all those things. And that's why astonishment and connection are desirable, not compulsion. Now, astonishment is not explicitly mentioned in chapter number 10 and 11. He briefly talked about astonishment by the end of chapter number 9. This discussion of astonishment you will not find is elaborated further in any chapters. In chapter number 10 and 11, he is not mentioning uh, astonishment categorically, but it is a crucial concept underlying the distinction and definition which they contain. As we have seen, how the effective plot can use astonishment as its most interesting part. Because if you see the example of Shakespearean play Hamlet, also you will find out the same thing. That Shakespeare has tried to use the idea of astonishment and connection. And that's why astonishment and connection, these are the crucial concepts underlying the distinction and definition. So he has not discussed this elaborately in further chapters. In chapter number 10, he defines the two classes of plot. There are two classes of plots Aristotle is talking about. Now, please see step by step how is increasing. First, he emphasized on the different constituents of tragedy. Then, in constituents of tragedy, he brought out the primacy of plot over rest of the things. Why plot is essential, he has convinced us by giving various examples. But why plot is most important, why plot is primary, by giving examples of its use, its importance in comparison with character and in comparison with rest of the constituents of tragedy. Then he talks about what is essential in plot, what it aims for, what is its target, how this plot becomes most important and primary part of a tragic plot and well-formed plot. And then he moves ahead and talked out that what sort of actions and how the actions are having connections with each other, how the actions are logically connected, and how the consequences of actions will take place. Then why it is important to have a chance of all these sort of you can say universalization and statements made in plot. And then he rejects historiography, he rejects biography, and then he moved ahead to make an effective plot, how a well-formed plot can be more effective by the use of astonishment and connection. And after creating the whole thing very confirmed and clear, now Aristotle is moving towards the two different classes of plot. What are those two different classes of plot? Simple and complex. Simple plot satisfies three conditions. Simple plot satisfies three conditions. Number one, the events are in the sense defined, continuous, and unified. Three conditions. The first one is the events are in the sense defined. What are the events? It is defined. The events are continuous and unified. That is connected in accordance with, again, the phrase necessity or probability, fulfilling the condition of necessity and probability. The second condition is there is change of fortune, as it is specified in chapter number 7 already. Change of fortune, good fortune to bad, bad to good. We have discussed that. The second condition. And the third condition is, and there is no reversal or recognition. These are the three conditions for simple plot. Please understand. What is simple plot? Simple plot fulfills three conditions. First condition is the events are in the sense defined, continuous and unified. Number two, there is no change, there is a change in fortune. And number three, there is no reversal or recognition. If these three conditions are fulfilled, then the plot is simple plot. What is complex plot? Complex plot, simply you will find out, follows again the three conditions. Complex plot also follows the three conditions. The first two conditions are same. The events are defined, continuous and unified. There is change in fortune. These two conditions are common for simple plot and complex plot. But the third condition is changed in complex plot. There is no reversal or recognition for simple plot. There is reversal and recognition. Wherever you will find out reversal and recognition, that plot has to be considered as complex plot. The difference lies in the third condition. First two conditions for both the class of plot, both the classes of plot, you'll find it same. The third condition is changed. If there is no reversal and recognition, it is simple. There is reversal and recognition, it is complex. Now these two terms, reversal and recognition, these two terms, Aristotle has defined it in chapter number 11. Now, what is recognition and what is reversal? These two things we'll see. Recognition, in Greek, it is called as anagnorosis. Anagnorosis. Anagnorisis. Anagnorisis means recognition. What is recognition? What is recognition? Recognition is a change from ignorance to knowledge. A change from ignorance to knowledge. In Oedipus, you will find that Oedipus is ignorant about his relationship with his queen when Oedipus was the king. He feels, or he follows the rule of the state, that the wife of deceased king, wife of the king, is going to be the wife of the winner king. So he married. It is his ignorance. In ignorance, he married with his mother. But later on, he comes to know that to whom he marries is his mother. That means from ignorance to knowledge. If you go with the biblical text, when God says, don't eat the fruit of this particular tree in the Garden of Eden, Adam has not touched the fruit, but Eve touched it, she ate it, and from ignorance of not knowing, she reached to the state of knowledge, from ignorance to knowledge. That is called as anagnorosis, recognition from ignorance to knowledge. Now, why recognition is important? Because this is the only point which changes the fortune. The second condition of plot, the change in fortune is compulsory. If you want to make it well formed plot, the event is defined, continuous, and unified. The first condition is fulfilled. Now, the second condition is there is change in fortune. How the change in fortune will take place? Change in fortune will take place in the play with the help of anagnorosis, recognition. The point is that this change from ignorance to knowledge affects the good or bad fortune of a person involved into it. Oedipus has learned. Oedipus comes to know that he has killed his father and married his mother. And this recognition is the final blow that shatters his whole world. Now, note that, my friends, recognition is associated above all with close relationship or enmity. Here Oedipus recognizes he killed his father and married his mother. Close affair, close relationship or enmity between the characters. Because your close relationship or your close association with any particular individual, it can bring good or bad fortune. It will shatter the whole world. Because he married with his mother, he killed his father. It is a close association of those two persons with Oedipus's life. Ignorance to knowledge, recognition, and agnorosis is possible, is very effective if the individual is having in close enmity with the characters with whom he comes to know about certain things. What happened with Hamlet? Hamlet comes to know that his father was killed by his own uncle and his mother married to his own uncle after the death of his father. His world shatters. Now, these two characters, his uncle and his mother, are close relationship or enmity with Hamlet. What happens in Othello? Othello comes to know that Desdemona is having close relationship with Cassio. Desdemona is his wife, Cassio is his very close friend. Now, if you come to know about XYZ who is not very close to you, you will not shattered with that particular decision. You will not disturb because of that particular decision. If the close relationship of the characters are there, and if this happened with a close enmity or relationship, then and then the whole thing will change. Now, this Oedipus's world would not have been shattered if the man he had killed turned out to be complete stranger. Why would this world shatter? Okay, even though if he killed the king and married the queen, and if that king was not his father, then his world would not shatter. Okay, if he married the queen, if he comes to know that the woman with whom he married is not his mother, then the world would not shatter. And that's why a change from ignorance to knowledge is related with the person's relationship or close enmity with the other characters, which would affect his whole behavior, which would affect his whole life. Now, this idea of recognition, Aristotle discusses this premise. Aristotle examined more closely in chapter number 14. This is the first thing that Aristotle is talking about. The second interesting thing Aristotle is talking about is reversal, that is called as peripatia. P E R I P E T E I A. I'll repeat once again. P E R I P E T E I A. Peripatia means reversal. Reversal is less straightforward. Reversal is less straightforward. Now it is emphatically not to be equated with the tragic change of fortune. Please understand this. It has nothing, it has not to be equated with the tragic change of fortune. A change of fortune is characteristics of all the tragic plots because it is common thing. Change of fortune is a common thing in both simple plot, complex plot. Every tragic plot requires change in fortune. Now, reversal and recognition, what we talked about recognition also, but recognition and reversal, only these two things will change the whole class of plot. The whole class of plot can be changed because of reversal and recognition. Now, because of this reversal, you will find out, and because of this recognition, you will find out the effect, the astonishment which we talked quite a time before. This astonishment will come into existence, and that create or that brings or that evokes the emotions of pity and fear more effectively amongst the audience. Now, Aristotle's definition of reversal is vague. What he said, there is a change to the opposite in the actions being performed as stated. This is what Aristotle had said, that there is a change. There is a change to the opposite in the actions being performed as stated. As stated is referred to astonishment. As I said, reversal involves an astonishing inversions of expected outcome of some action. As I mentioned it, that because of this reversal, because of this change, an astonishing inversion is expected because of this reversal. And this astonishing inversion is expected out of some course of action. But that astonishment should not be achieved at the cost of necessary or probable connection. Again, there is a minute understanding of the things. This reversal will surely bring the idea of bring the term or bring the concept of astonishment into the tragic plot for getting an effective tragic effect. But this astonishment should not disturb the necessary or probable connection of the events. For example, Aristotle's discovery of the terrible truth is paradoxical. But necessary consequences of the arrival of the messenger who aims at bring the good news. If you remember a little bit of Oedipus that we discussed when we are talking about tragedy in the classroom, that Oedipus sends a messenger to Apollo that to get the news or to get the message from Apollo that which sort of sin is been committed in the state because of which the people of his states people of his state are suffering. The messenger went, and everybody is expecting that the messenger will come with a good news that yes, God Apollo said this. But the messenger come with a news that there is a sin committed by the person of a noble family. Now, this what is the aim of the messenger? The aim of the messenger is to come with a good news, but the messenger came with the news which shattered, which put to an end to the Oedipus's whole life. Here, reversal, because reversal is simply the tragic change of fortune, and recognition to get the things from, you can say, ignorance to knowledge. You will find out both the things. Reversal and recognition reinforced here, that gives a tragic effect properly to the play called Oedipus. Now, the astonishment produced by reversal involves an overturn of expectation. Everybody is expecting some good news in this play, but this reversal overturns all the expectation, and that's why there's an astonishment, surprise. There is therefore a close parallel between reversal and recognition. There is a close parallel between reversal and recognition. Both reveal that the situation in which a character has been involved, a situation in which a character has been involved was misrepresented. How it is misrepresented? That character Oedipus as a king is involved into the whole action to search out why his people were dying, why, what sort of disease it occurred, and that's why he's involved into that. And his involvement is not proper because his behavior is responsible for all this misery. And that's why reversal reveals that because things are not what they seem, and the outcome of the person's action will be other than what had been expected. The messenger coming with a message, the message rather than giving relief to Oedipus devastated his assurance, broke his assurance. That's why you'll find out recognition reveals that because things are not what they seemed, what a person has done or is about to do is not what he thought it was. It is not happening as per the expectation of the character. Oedipus, if he has not killed a hostile stranger who is supposed to be his own father, he killed King Laos as a stranger. He is not known, he is not familiar with the fact that the person to whom he is killing his own father. Now, the things what they seem, the stranger, what a person has done, Oedipus killed him. Or what about to do, later on to become king and marry his own wife, his own mother. They are not what he thought it was. What Oedipus thought, he killed a stranger who is a king, and as the rituals of the state is that the wife of slain king or dead king is to marry with the new king. They followed this. And that's why this parallel between reversal and recognition points the way to the tragic error. The parallel between reversal and recognition points the way to tragic error, which Aristotle discussed in chapter number 13, and the role of ignorance he discussed in chapter number 14. So, the role of reversal is, or the role of recognition is so important in the play, so important in well-formed plot that it leads the way to tragic error. And that's why Aristotle has discussed about astonishment, anagnorosis, that is recognition, peripecia, that is reversal. The three concepts that we discussed today need to be understood with the plot, which is going to be more effective. Later on in chapter number 13, 14, which addresses the question of the best kind of tragic plot. What is to be called as a best kind of tragic plot? Till now, we have talked about well-formed tragic plot. What is a well-formed tragic plot? We have discussed right now. We have discussed right now what are the constituents of tragedy. What are the things that require to make a plot well-formed plot? What are the things that makes the plot well-formed? What sort of how the plot can get its effect? Now we are going to find out what exactly is the best kind of tragic plot, and this we will discuss in tomorrow's lecture. Okay. So if you have any doubts, please ask. If not, then we'll stop today. And please try to be at 10:30 or 10 till 10:35. You should join the classes because students are joining at 10:45 and a little bit late. Okay, so try to join in time so that we can begin by 10:35. Okay, thank you, friends. Thank you very much.